welcome everyone. This is exciting. It's an exciting episode. So welcome to this Agent Intelligent. We're exploring everything AI agent, infra, and we're speaking with thought leaders in the space. We're speaking with agent builders and also diving deep into different platform and infra providers. So I'm super excited to have here YQ from Alt Layer. It's a big pleasure to have you here and an honor actually to have you to the stream. And would you welcome, Honor? You want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Francisco, and great to be in your sort of new episode of the podcast. So, YQ here, founder of Aulier, and as most of these audience know, Aulier we started since 2021, focusing on this blockchain infrastructure as a service. So, in the first few years, we built this rollup as service to provide OP stack, Vitrum Orbit, and the various ZK rollups for different applications. And later, we working closely with EigenLayer to provide this AV as a service. So we together coined the term called restate rollup, basically launch a rollup with a bunch of these AVIs to help to boost the security and also decentralization for these rollups. And we already have like over 40 or 50 paid clients to help them to launch a rollup to scale their business. At the same time, we also have around like 10 clients build the sort of ABS for them. And as Francisco mentioned, right, like for most of our products, we are really trying to help to meet the demands from the users and developers. And since the second half of last year, we started our new business line called this Autonom. Basically, it's a verifiable agent hosting platform. We all know like there's so many like sort of agents in crypto, right? So on our side, we are still focusing on the infra side. So we provide this autonomous platform for all different like sort of developers to launch their agents without hassle. So you need to click a bunch of buttons, then you can launch your own like sort of crypto agent framework or like sort of launch some of the agents from the other framework.
I mean, YQ is super interesting. I mean, I think you're not just like a builder. I think Outlier is now kind of a giant, has been around for a long time, also to providing a solid and scalable infra. And you're not just riding the wave, but also I think people, especially on the risk-taking side and the ADS side, they are relying on Outlier a lot. And also like it's very exciting that you also like building this specific kind of arm for kind of like agents and I definitely want to kind of like dive a little bit into this, and I definitely want to also like see some kind of like demo or like show me something, but I want to kind of
Mhm.
ask you first the question how kind of everything started on the alt layer side, and where like so why you were actually trying to like building this kind of platform specific to agent, like where were the kind of problem that you saw that you need to solve it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good question. As I mentioned, right, for all our like sort of products, we build these products or platforms to really address like sort of the challenges and also the problems from the users. We are really like sort of driven by the demand. So for this autonom, this verifiable agent platform, right, the biggest problem we have in this kind of crypto agent space right now is really about its verifiability. I believe you still remember like in the early days when people saw AI XBT, right? It
Oh
made a
yes.
lot of fun tweets and like give people a lot of alpha information, right? Then a lot of like sort of community members like complain like, is it a real agent or is just a bunch of students behind the scenes just manually tap these comments or these tweets, right? So that's a part I sort of like since in crypto we always want this verifiability over everything, right? So since that time we figure out like okay, it would be great like we can show people that okay, we call it agent in crypto, so in the end it's definitely run by the machine, not run by the human. So in that case we try to figure out okay how we can build this hosting platform to make sure like people can really check the verifiability and just to make sure like okay everything's working fine. And then that's sort of like the starting point we build this autonom. So at the beginning, we working with our partners like EigenLayer and also this so automata So with EigenLayer, we together built this new AVS we call Pulse, it's Pulse. So basically, from the name, you can see that we this like sort of AVS, right? We can regularly check this health status of all the instances hosting this agent, right? So in that case, if anything wrong, right, these operators and basically the system can help to slash the states from these operators. And beyond that, like another very important thing is about the private key and also some of the private information, right? So we work with Automata basically to leverage the TE to ensure this confidentiality for these agents. At the same time, we can also ensure all the logic and data hosted in these kind of TE instances are secure, right? So that's
Nice.
sort of the things like basically how we start. It really like sort of driven by the demands from the builders and also community members. And on top of that, we build this autonomous platform and for the users and developers to launch these agents in a verifiable environment. Of
I
course, as
mean,
you know, right, at earlier
yeah,
side, we are always try to really lift all the heavy lifting, right? And basically, um, like if you look at our white paper, we have these formulas and also mathematical proofs to show that okay, the system is sound and solid. And beyond that, if you visit this autonom.fun, right, and you can see it's really like this no-code agent platform. You just need to click a bunch of buttons. You can choose Coinbase agent key, you can choose Eliza, and then there's a bunch of
nice.
options and fill in like some of your API keys, and then you can launch an agent within a few minutes. Like so, in that case, right, even the entire system is in a verifiable environment, but we basically help the users to finish all the heavy lifting. So what you can see is basic no-code agent platform.
So that's actually super interesting. And I mean, I really like the fact that you guys also innovate and build specific features and really understanding what the community wants. So actually, I would say let's dive a little bit on the autonomous side. So remind me, is that kind of like a no code? It's kind of like a vibe coding for a agent builder, or is also like done for actually like deep dive like builders that want to actually like build on the framework itself, like on Eliza, Lagrange, and that's it.
Yeah, so then I will directly share the screen of this website,
Oh
right? It's
yes,
already
I
live
like it.
since end of last year. And you can just log in with your Google account. And basically, as you can see, right, we already have a lot of these built-in agent frameworks, like as Francisco mentioned, right, Eliza and also Coinbase Agent Kit. At the same time, we also help some of our partners to customize some of these agent frameworks, right? Like there's a customized version Eliza BNB for BNB chain, and also this one is a hyperbolic based like sort
Nice.
of agent
Yes.
frameworks. And
Yes.
in I think around January and also February, we work with East Global and to host this very first
Oh, yes.
agentic
Yeah. Yes.
hackathon, online hackathon. Then we got over 100 developers and basically build different agent frameworks and upload their agent frameworks, as you can see, right? So now I believe we have probably over 50 different agent frameworks on platform. So like for the agent developers, you can just upload this new framework. So later we
Nice.
can help you to distribute these
So,
agents.
yeah. So speaking
Yeah.
about this part, YQ, I'm super interested because I see a lot of Web2 developers coming and saying, I want to just have a Python-based frameworks. Where do you see the trends going with framework-specific kind of like programming languages? Do you see something like one rule it all? There will be more specific frameworks. I'm wondering like to understand also like because you obviously see all the frameworks kind of like history and you see where this is going, but you also like see the agent side. So on more on the higher level programmatic way, but also you see the low level kind of framework side too.
I believe like because right now in AI space, right? I mean in Web2 AI space, everything is moving so fast. I mean, we previous we have OpenAI, Anthropic, and also this Gemini from Google, right? And recently we also had this DeepSeek, and beyond that, NVIDIA also launched their own like sort of like AI models, right? It's just on the model side we have so many choices right now, and beyond that, the agent side is also moving too fast. And recently, I mean, not recently, also end of last year, we had this Claude MCP. So right now, everything the previous like the agents like built like 1 year or even like a few months ago, right? Basically, all of them are obsolete because of the MCP, the new protocol. Because it's much more like sort of powerful and basically we have like sort of MCP client, MCP server. It can help people to automatically like precise and all different like sort of files and also the requests from browsers or even local operating system. So in that case, as we can see, right, it's so intelligent, it's moving so fast that everyone is having this second mover advantage. If you build something like sort of last week or last month, and right now with the new technology or new protocol, probably we can build a much better one. So in that case, not just like in crypto, but also in Web2, I still feel that right now is in a super nascent stage, and everyone has a very big chance to really become like sort of the winner. And because like the technology is evolving so fast, and every time with the new technology, we can build probably 10x better than the one from last week or last month. So in that
Yes.
case, it's not like as Francisco you mentioned, right? There's so many frameworks and there's so many agents. Do you think one of them can rule all of them like for some time? I believe probably there can be a rising star for 1 or 2 weeks, but immediately if their new technology comes out, right, in crypto, I mean in like sort of the AI, right? So immediately we will have another winner. So that's a problem, as you mentioned, right? Not just on the application side, also on the framework side. There's so many newcomers.
On the framework side.
It's because like the technology is evolving very fast, and with the new
Mm-hmm.
MCP, right? Basically, all the previous old frameworks no longer as good as the
Yes.
current ones. So everyone is embracing like MCP and building some new agents on top of that, and much
Yes.
powerful, at 10x better. So in that
Yes.
case, I just feel like okay, it's not anyone's fault. It's basically like we have to evolve. I mean, because technology is evolving, right? We have to build new frameworks and build new agents. It's not just for application, even on the fundamental model side, everything is changing like almost every day. So in that case, as I just show you, right, we already
Mm-hmm.
have over 100 different
This is
agent
interesting.
frameworks, but I believe we can probably have another 100 new better ones, like probably this month or next month. Yeah.
Yes. Question: do you in the things that you showed me right now, you only having like framework specific list, or you also like have agentic kind of like system there already? Let me show. Yeah, because I really enjoyed actually the screen
So
share here.
yeah, so this part is basically for the user, for the developers, right? You can for the user, you can choose which one you want to deploy, and then like you can choose the ones like the other developers already uploaded, and then like sort of choose all different options, and then you can launch your own agent. So there are two models for autonomous. One is basically for developer. Developer, you can upload your framework, and after that, when you upload framework after our internal vetting, right, the framework will be shown here. And then for the users, and they can deploy the framework basically shown here. And after that, as a user, right, you can see all the agents you deploy based on the different frameworks. Like for example, I deploy so many ELIZA sort of agents for different Twitter accounts, right? And
Nice,
then I also
nice,
deploy some like these sort of these Coinbase agent key. I
nice.
can share with the different agents.
Do you
So
have
there are
for the
two
age?
parts. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Do you see no? Do you see metrics? I like metrics in terms of like if kind of the framework has been forked multiple times, some kind of like social graphs, because that was kind of like also the idea at the beginning, like with Mother was like we don't want to live in the World Wide West of like DeFi summer, people forking people, and then basically like the user consumers will kind of get dragged. We need to have social graphs around agents, but I like what you're doing on the framework side because I wonder also like as a builder, how, do we
Mhm.
have kind of social graphs around frameworks? Because right now I know some metrics, I know forks, I know what Eliza kind of like agent being built, but maybe you have already kind of building this matrix so that you can actually give more data points to builders to say, okay, this is the Python framework I want to follow because first as more integration on the app layer, but
Yeah.
also maybe as more, how do you say, like usability in terms of like reputational on the builder side?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So the thing is like so far what we have on the metrics side, one is like sort of this number of agent frameworks uploaded on the platform, and the second thing is basically the agents like the user can deploy. So one thing we are working on instead of like sort of like ask everyone to use one agent framework or fork the framework to launch their own agent. So one thing we are working internally is a cross agent routing protocol. It's basically you can build whatever agent you frameworks you want. You can launch different agents, and beyond that, we definitely need some cross agent protocol to make sure they can communicate with each other. That's not just for the agents on top of this autonomous platform. We also provide the interface for the agents deployed on the other platforms. For example, the ones that you self-host. So in that case, right, it's a great way like to help them to communicate to each other. It's a little bit like this cross-chain bridging service, right? But it's mainly used for the agents. But as I mentioned, right, it's still very early. Like when we talk about like communication across different agents, but so far for a single agent, like people are still debating whether we should have like sort of this super agent or we should have a swarm or cluster of agents. And so far
This
with
is a
the
good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the point like is right now with MCP and somehow people feel that okay probably a super agent is a good direction
A
compared to a
question,
swarm of agents.
but
Yeah.
what do you think about it? Because if you're saying we want to have a kind of like a specialized agent, then we also need to think about agent coordination, and we don't have really standards until there. Like, what is your opinion? Do you believe in a future of specialized versus kind of like super agent? And what's your thought about agent to agent coordination?
Um, like because I stay in San Francisco like sort of last month, right? I talked to a lot of people. I feel like the like based on the current progress, right? Gradually, we will have more and more agents using some private data, and this kind of private data won't be shared to the public. So in that case, like even you have this super agent on top of the public data, but as Francisco you mentioned, right? For some private data, some like sort of they have their own agent. So basically, like for example, health data and some of like sort of their own company inside information data, right? So this kind of data won't be shared to the public, but definitely in the future there will be more and more these kind of agents, the very application or purpose specific purpose agents like sort of exist there. So in that case, right, we probably will have this kind of super agent for most of the public information, but this agent if they talk to some like sort of specific purpose like agent, right? It's sort of like they still need to call some protocol to make sure they can communicate with this agent. At the same time, this private agent won't share much information with the public agent. That
Yes.
somehow is quite similar to the current like sort of company model, right? We have all the public information on the internet, but we still have a lot of private companies, right? We won't
Yes.
really have the direct access to the internal information of the private companies, unless there's some like sort of specific query or interface APIs. Sometimes it's a paid access, right? And it's roughly I just feel like gradually it will become similar to the current setup of these public company and also private company, this
Yes.
kind of structure. Instead of like we feel like everything will be public, all the agent like sort of they can do whatever they want. That won't
This is a good
that won't
point.
be
Yeah.
possible. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but then a question, who do you think is responsible in building those kind of like standard slash framework? Because I feel like, for example, Altlayer could be a really good kind of like independent entry organization to build those specs and standards. But what are you thinking? Because we need to
Um,
have
I,
this, right? I remember the
I,
day,
I,
between NFT, that every kind
yes,
of like
yes.
OpenSea out there was not having the same ERC standards, and people were not able to move NFT from platform to platform. And I think it would be the same with Agent if we're not actually getting fast into like those standards.
Um, to be honest, I feel like right now, it's still too early to talk about these kind of standards. It's quite similar to the early days, like when Ethereum just came out back in 2014 or 2015, right? And and basically at that time, people don't even didn't even talk about like sort of bridging all these cross chain services, and we don't have a standard. Even right now, we don't have the standard to basically for the bridging services or cross chain services. So I just feel like for agent it's the same. Like people will just focusing, we're just focusing like sort of building their own like sort of agents, even either the public ones and private ones. And gradually, there are so many this kind of cross agent protocol, right? People will figure out like, which one is the best one to use, probably the simplest one. Or sometimes people so that feel that okay, it's fine. It won't be, you won't really have the standard. The standard is just some uh, JSON JSON API. You get my point, right?
Yes,
It's
yes,
similar to somehow it's similar to this OpenAI API. Right now, if you look at this Open Router and all different new models, right, they will try to make sure their APIs, the API calls, having the similar or exactly the same parameters and function name to OpenAI. You get my point, right? So it's sort of
yes.
like we're not saying it's the best, but it's basically because they are early and people feel like it would be great like we don't reinvent the wheels, so we just like reuse the previous interfaces.
Agree.
We hope we can be one of the early like sort of contributors to the specs or standards, but as I mentioned, right, everything is moving too fast. Even we have a standard right now, but now late right now they're MCP, right? Probably later there's another protocol and new standard and new feature, and basically we need to redo it again. Without the MCP, we feel like probably agents is just like some RAG plus some big model, right? But with MCP, it looks like everything changed, and now we have to like sort of figure out ways to glue all the different agents together again. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, this I agree. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But I feel also
Yes.
like you're seeing a lot of like kind of experiences around both on the infra side, both on the agent side. And before I diving a little bit on the like what's coming next, I wanted to ask you like for all the builders hearing us, like what do you see are the common mistakes that should be like kind of like a agent builder avoid? Do you feel like people are starting with some specific frameworks, they're not then flexible enough? Do you feel there are some no coding agent builders and then they can actually be flexible also on the code? Do you feel Python specific are not flexible? What are kind of the missing kind of like things, the lesson learned that you feel you see people doing that you wish they were not doing at the beginning or in the growth side?
um my opinion is a little bit different from the other like sort of podcast guest. My opinion or my strong thought is really on like we need first to figure out like the demand. We need to figure out the demand and then we build the agent. There's so many opportunities if you look at like sort of on Twitter and all different like sort of social media, right? You can definitely build a new agent for social. I mean, for social application, build a new agent for healthcare. You can build a new agent even for this kind of secondary market for this kind of rental fees. You get my point, right? And
Yes.
basically, and even for crypto, right? Of course, we can build agent for trading, agent for arbitrage, but the problem in the end is about like where we can find the demand, whether it's like sort of a mass demand or it's just something good to have. So in that case, like for developers, right? Because like we are working with East Global, Eigen, and all different projects to organize a hackathon, hacker house. We figure out that sometimes developers or like sort of builders just want to build something cool. You get my point, right?
Yes. Yes.
Something
Yeah, it's
cool
hyped.
won't
It doesn't mean
really
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Something cool doesn't mean that we can really serve the demands from the other users. So something cool is
Yes.
like, so in the end, like one is demand, the other side is about your expectation. If your expectation to generate revenue, I believe we have to build some agent like basically to serve these demands. If you want to the expectation to build something cool, like for example, this recently we use ChatGPT to generate these cartoon photos, right? Ghibli
Oh
photos,
yeah, yeah,
right?
Ghiblis.
So
Yes.
cool, right? I mean, it's
Yes.
also good. I mean, you can get a lot of attractions,
Hmm.
but I
If
think the
it's
first
usable,
thing is
that's
about
another story.
demand. Yeah, yeah. Second thing is about your expectation.
But
So
then,
if you make two things like
yeah.
clear, then I think everything's clear. Yeah.
But Hugh, I like where this is going. Like maybe you can give also some ideas about actually instead following the trend, what are kind of those agents that you think we actually matter for AI agent consumer? Because in my kind of world, I'm always thinking about is the chat to chat to agent the best format for AI agent consumer to interact? And then second is that apart kind of social agents and some of the DeFi agents, you have XBT on other side, you have more like kind of like rebalancing fund agents,
Mm-hmm,
auto
mm-hmm.
deployment to LP pools. What other use case you think, practically speaking, are there? Let's not speak futuristic. Let's be concrete, because I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
like where
yeah.
you were, what we were saying now on the spicy parts.
Yeah. So for the first question, right, it's basically like for example how we like sort of build this um, application for practical usage, right? And I just feel like one is of course as you mentioned, right, all the DeFi agent like arbitrage and also portfolio management sometimes it's not intelligent enough. um, and beyond that, we also need to figure out okay what the other demands from these crypto people. Most of most of them still on the trading, right? Probably some of them want to be the KOL, and then you can generate some interesting content similar to AI XPT, right? But definitely it may not be long term because like these are all low hanging fruit. For example, generate some like sort of a Twitter bot, these kind of businesses. And beyond that, what are the what are the other demands from these crypto users? It's typically around trading, like all different like probably some figure out ways to find like so early alpha information, is trading signals and provide for the users. Of course, beyond that, I just feel like it's not just pure crypto, and we can also figure out ways like to use our crypto infrastructure, for example, the payment, and to conquer the Web2 market. For example, we can, as I mentioned, right, there's multiple ways we can build agents to serve the demands from Web2 users. Because crypto user, I mean, the crypto specific like sort of demands, right, are mostly on around trading. But for not just a pure crypto user, right, also Web2 users, we have a lot of demands from the other side, right? We want to do online shopping, we want to do the travel planning, we want to search ABCD, and these are all like sort of the real demands we can build these new agents, especially use new technology to solve. So these are, I believe, like also the good ways,
Yes,
non-trading specific like sort of usage we can build. Of course, like we shouldn't just focus purely on this crypto agent, right? We can
agree.
use
Yeah.
our crypto infra to solve some Web2 like sort of problems. And beyond that, that's why like back to the other question you asked, right? Whether this chat box is a good interaction ways. I feel like probably not really because like I'm not the fun to
Hmm.
really typing stuff and do everything within like sort of one application. I still feel
Hmm.
like so one way like probably using voice is a good way, or probably as you know, right, is like sort of this uh, like we can
Hmm.
have some
Hmm.
ways to
Yes.
plug like sort of chip into the brain and then use the
Yeah, yeah, of
brain to
course.
operate these sort of AI agents.
Hmm.
And beyond that, as you can see, right, even like people are thinking about whether a website is a good format for presenting information, because with the agent, right, apparently the browser and all the websites are the hurdles for the information processing. That's why we have this browser use and all different like these manuals, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
all different ways to process the information. And apparently, the browsers and websites are the hurdles. they couldn't
Hmm.
really present the
The entry
information in a
point.
very
Yeah.
precise way. It
But
gives
that
you a
means,
lot of this
yeah,
redundant information in this HTML file, right?
yes,
Um, so there's so many things we can do. That's why I feel like it's not my opinion. It's just like I can see like everyone saying like because it's new technology and we can basically redo everything. Like I mean, all these previous application we use, probably all of them will be obsolete, and we need to build
yes,
some new ways to interact and fetch the information from these sort of for like to
yes.
handle all the different requirements from users.
Yes,
Yeah.
but the one thing that is sure is that in order to move kind of like forwards on this, that you need to rely on reliable and resilient infrastructure. And I think what you guys are
Yes.
doing here is
Yeah.
kind of like key, right? And no matter how the kind of the LLM kind of like the LLM space is moving, no matter what's the format, if it's more like API based consumption versus kind of voice to chat, you still need to consume those information. Maybe it will be only like agents will be consumed by specific, not even human, will be agent to agent services, right? Mostly of the infra side, but you still need to rely on the infrastructure, and you also want to push infrastructure is kind of like open source, especially on the containerized. Kind of like building containerized knowledge bases. I think this is also like something that we definitely need to work on. That is not a kind of like a closed source because you want to be flexible in the
Yeah.
in future infrastructural designs. So I mean, what you this is kind of like a source of kind of like deep, spicy, super interesting takes.
Hmm.
So what is happening on the kind of alt layer side? I really like people in community check the infra where he's talking about in our white paper. You want to give us a little bit like a glance on, could be on the white paper side, could be what is happening next on the alt layer side, how kind of what kind of builders need to be aware, what you guys are kind of shipping, of course things that you can speak in public.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, right? On our side for the autonom, it's basically like sort of in two folds. One is like on this infra side, we already have like sort of this AVS working with Eigen. It's called Pulse to regularly check like sort of the health and also heartbeat and all different informations of these hosted instances, right? Like this CPU, RAM, like sort of these to make sure like sort of these agent hosting like sort of service is always running. On the other side, we also having like sort of these TE services to make sure all the logic data like sort of executed properly and with proper like sort of proof to make sure like everything's running fine. And so these two things help us to ensure this reliability for these agent backend servers. And on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, right? So we also have this cross agent routing protocol is CAR, and basically to make sure like all the agents they can communicate with each other in a confidential like sort of manner. So these are the things on the infrastructure side. Basically, we make sure like all these agents we host basically in a very in this verifiable environment. On top of that, the other side, as I mentioned to you, right, we have this no-code platform. So when users launch like sort of agents within a few minutes or upload their agent frameworks, they won't like sort of need to bother building everything from scratch. And basically, we already finished all the heavy lifting, so they can just click and launch on this no-code platform. So these are the two like sort of major components for autonom. Of course, like as you know, right? Internally, we're also trying to figure out like, okay, what are the new products and the features we can launch for the next like probably a few months and to serve more users. So one like probably we will further fine tune this platform to make sure like everything is working better and more smooth. And beyond that, we are also trying to add new features like this MCP and also some new social elements into it. Just to make sure like we also, as I mentioned, right, trying to involve and to make sure like okay, not just on this platform itself, infrastructure itself. So probably later we can also provide some products like users can directly use and at the same time, they also leverage the sort of underlying platform of autonomous, transparent way. So that's basically always our hope, right? We want to accelerate the scaling for crypto, but at the same time, we try to present all the products to the users in a transparent way. So they're using crypto, they're using blockchain, but at the same time, it's exactly the same of the user experience when they are using Web2 applications.
Nice, nice, nice. And really, last question with you that we are on time is so how you will define the success for those agents? Do you have any metrics in mind that is not just forks or like TVL on agents? Like how is your thinking about like those metrics like that we define say okay this is success for actually like an agent?
I think we can use a very simple matrix called DAU, daily active user. It's a little bit like sort of back
Nice.
to
Yes.
this Web 2, but I feel like that would be great. Like later, either use Autonom or use some of the agents on top of Autonom, we can have very high DAU. Probably as good as like sort of Web 2 applications. So that would
Yes.
be like sort of
I mean
our
it's
expectation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Agree, agree, agree. I mean, it's not rocket science. I think, like sometimes we are feeling we need to go away from the Web 2 side, but I mean, like, let's be honest also, like this major kind of cycle, I feel the super smart brain capital and injection came from actually Web
Yeah.
2 AI kind of like backgrounds. So very Python and AI strong PhDs. And then second is that matrix wise, we need to think about, I mean, I'm not speaking about SaaS specifically, but we need to think about metrics that are useful and they can actually like convert in understanding really if the value is kind of like is going to user. At the end we're building for actually user adoption, and we need to also think about general users at the end. This is the way, right? So I really like what you're saying here about kind of like the activity on the agent side. I think there will be very interesting kind of like stats around probably like the kind of like TVL that
Yeah.
maybe if it's a DeFi agent that will be kind of like managed social wise, but I think it will be quality and not kind of like quantity because sometimes the XBT for specific on socials it's just very
Yeah.
quantitative there. And I'm asking also myself, is actually providing value for me as users when I actually interacting? That's
Yeah.
another story. Okay, thank you so much, YQ. I think we'll probably like see each other maybe, I don't know, in
Yeah.
ECC.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a lot of that you guys are working on. I'm really excited to see more, and we can also send some links. Excited also what you guys are doing on the kind of agent side. I feel like framework specific, like you are one of the most complete framework aggregator that actually can educate developers and builders to understand how they want on board. And we will kind of like see each other probably going next. Anything that you want to add that you feel like you want to kind of share with the builders out here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Francisco. As I mentioned, right, just visit our website, olier.io, or you can
Mhm.
directly go to autonom.fund to launch your first verifiable agent. Yeah, always great to see
Nice.
Francisco, and also glad to share everything with the audience. Thank you.
Sounds good. No, thank you so much, Wakil, and it's a big pleasure. And thanks to everybody that was kind of like watching this today, Agent Intelligent kind of episode. Thanks so much again, YQ. I think bringing you on stage and sharing this kind of valuable insight in less than 30 minutes is kind of a huge plus, especially with because you were also in SF this month. You have a lot of kind of also like fresh insights, and also like for everyone who's watching, if you're building agent, you're launching agents, or you just want to agent feedbacks around kind of very developer office hours, we have a very specific kind of like Discord channel, very specific for builders and developers. I posted here if anybody want to kind of like have kind of like some very developer focused session in regards building their agent, and we're sharing also a bunch of links. Everything that is like you kind of like mentioning now, we're also sending in those channels. Very bunch of kind of like drop of resources. So I would say thanks everybody. And thanks everybody that kind of coordinated this kind of agent intelligence group. A lot of people on the background coordinating this. And if anybody has anything they want to mention, want to present an agent, want to kind of criticize the space, want to just join the space next, DM us, and I think also your DMs are always open, YQ. So it's great to have this accessibility around the ecosystem. So thanks everybody.